Hi, my name is Dr. Rob Ward. I'd like to welcome you to another video class in the redoxdoc.com video conference series. This class is going to focus on post-traumatic stress disorder and some redox issues. Oftentimes we think of PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder as a problem that is really just something that is going to need to be treated psychiatrically with counseling or medications. And the good news is that as we understand more and more about the condition and how it affects brain cells and what's really at play at the root of this condition, it appears that there's tremendous oxidative stress issues that is a place for providing redox support to our body and to our brain. So let me talk a minute about what is PTSD and a little bit about the medical therapies and so forth. So it's really characterized as a mental disorder that occurs after there's an exposure to a traumatic event. So it could be somebody is assaulted, they might be involved in a bad car accident, their life might have been threatened in some way, and it creates the symptoms that happen as a result of this traumatic event is people start having thoughts, feelings, or dreams that are related to the traumatic event. And it causes a fight or flight response in their body and their mind. So they have anxiety and fear and worry and physical symptoms of heart palpitations and so forth. For example, if a person is raped, there's about a 50% chance that they will develop PTSD. So it's a significantly serious issue. It affects about 4% of adults in our country. And it's much higher in rates where there is a prevalence of war, as you might well guess. So therapies revolve around counseling and medications. One of the medications that are used are the SSRI drugs, such as Prozac or Paxil, and they have a pretty good response rate of up to 50% just from using those medicines to help people with this difficult problem. There seems to be a genetic connection in PTSD, and the sort of familial chances are greater if you have a family member developing PTSD yourself, if you have a family member. And the interesting thing about in PTSD, if you look at the levels of some of our chemicals, like one of our hormones, cortisol, that's produced by the adrenal gland, in PTSD there are lower cortisol levels as compared to catecholamines, which would be norepinephrine, epinephrine, dopamine, those kind of chemicals. So the curious thing is that there seems to be a mismatch between the adrenal adaptation, fight or flight through some of our adrenal systems versus the brain and its adaptive strategies. They don't line up. And that probably plays a role in the development of these thoughts and symptoms. Well, let's talk a little bit about some research that's been done. And specifically, there is a persistent and growing body of evidence that many of the psychiatric conditions that we have are related to the persistence of these psychiatric problems are related to the presence of oxidative stress and what are called free radicals. So there was a study done back in 2003 where they looked at free radicals as related to psychiatric disorders. The study was small, just 14 subjects, but they showed that glutathione, which is one of the antioxidants in our cells, the levels of glutathione and superoxide dismutase had a positive correlation with post-traumatic scale tests. So the people with the high levels of post-traumatic symptoms had high levels of these antioxidants, which would make sense. The body's trying to adapt. There was a wonderful journal article that is annotated in the footnotes for you on the video that had a great discussion about the persistence of life stresses that comes as a result of carrying with you this PTSD condition, where you have this fight or flight response over and over and over again, oftentimes because there's been a cue, some memory triggered by an anniversary date or a association with a place or a person. And you constantly have this fight or flight response. And that persistence of the stress to your body and to your brain causes a potentiation of oxidative stress. And that oxidative stress causes cellular aging. And if you think about it, our brain cells are particularly vulnerable to the rusting or effect or oxidative stress. So why is that? Well, our brain cells are burning a lot of fuel. They require a lot of blood supply. They use a lot of oxygen. And it's no wonder that they're especially vulnerable to toxins and the buildup of these waste products that can happen in our brain cells. So the compensation is, of course, to run blood through there and kind of flush things out and clean things up, but it doesn't always happen. Plus, nerve cells don't repair very well. They have sophisticated functions, but they're not good at fixing things when they get damaged. So they're susceptible to the buildup of toxins. They're susceptible to poisons. When we are poisoned, one of the first things that's damaged is our brain, our nervous system. Whammo, it goes down. We quit breathing or we quit thinking. So they're much more vulnerable in this way. And it has to do with the little nerve sheets that surround the cells and their demands for oxygen. If we, there's a lot of parts of our body that can do without oxygen for a little bit, but our brain is not one of them. So in fact, studies have shown, in fact, there was one study in this particular review article that showed that life stressors, such as life stressors at work and or at home, are a stronger predictor of oxidative stress than even smoking, alcohol, poor diet, etc. Our lifestyle really, really matters. So what can we do to get underneath some of this problem of PTSD? What can we do to provide support to ourselves that would allow for therapy to really have a chance to work? What can we do to support ourselves biologically? And so there's a relationship with these redox events and the free radicals and the buildup of oxidants. So if this is a brain cell, and that's the nucleus, as this cell is being exposed to toxins, or there's a buildup of oxidants, there's a buildup of positive charges as opposed to negative charges. And that causes the cell nucleus to go, oh my gosh, we got to do something about this. So one possibility is for the cell to produce extra antioxidants to kind of correct this. But one of the things that's available to do today, which is rather amazing, is to provide a resource of these same little molecules and give that as a redox supplement, a balanced redox supplement, equally charged particles, a spectrum of these molecules can be drank. They travel through our body. They're stabilized. They can find their way to a brain cell by crossing the blood-brain barrier and seemingly provide what is needed for that cell to normalize its balance of plus and minus. So as we cross the blood-brain barrier easily with these tiny, tiny little molecules, we see that this redox imbalance can be corrected. And it can be immediate. I actually know people who are experiencing anxiety, and I've witnessed them drink a sample of a redox product, just a couple ounces, and within a few seconds, I can see the relaxation come over their face. And they say, I do feel better. It's not a placebo thing. I've seen this happen over and over again. So that's option one. Bring in some balanced molecules, okay? The next thing is what can we do to promote cellular detoxification? So literally to get the toxins out, okay? Not just infuse a balance, but to get rid of those. So if we can increase that production of antioxidants, we're a winner. So how do you improve the release of antioxidants from the nucleus? How do we promote that? The way to do that is through the action of a chemical called transcription factor. Transcription factors, when they are promoted or raised, they stimulate the nucleus to just make all kinds of antioxidants. Transcription factor can be altered through the consumption of redox molecules also. And so we can greatly enhance the efficiency and the production of antioxidants. These antioxidants need to have a little redox molecule handy to match up with the positive charge and bring them together and neutralize those toxins. But just their own production can be leveraged by finding ways to increase transcription factor and make more of those antioxidants. So that's plan 2. Plan 3, improve cellular communication. You know, there are cells in our body, and it can be a brain cell in this case, that is, the cell is sick, it's out of balance, it's full of toxins, and yet it doesn't know what to do about it. And cells actually talk to each other, they communicate with each other, and they actually signal to one another, hey, you're looking pretty sick. You could use some balance. What are you doing? And the cell goes, oh, I didn't know. The way cells talk to each other is by releasing redox molecules from their cell to transmit information to the next cell. Or it might be a white blood cell that has an oxidative burst to warn the immune system to come over and help. So we can enhance cellular communication inside and between cells by having an abundance of these redox molecules. They literally are the molecules that provide the wavelength, just like your cell phone when it has enough bars to make a call. If you don't have enough molecules, you can't communicate between cells. The cell doesn't even know it's sick. It just sits there and does nothing. And eventually, it will die if it gets sick enough. So enhancing communication, promoting detoxification, and providing just a simple balanced resources to a cell can go way, way far to support our brain cells when they're stressed in this picture of repeated fight or flight response. And if you know somebody who has the problem of PTSD, in addition to what they're doing with their doctor, they may find that supporting their health through this kind of supplementation is very, very valuable. I hope that's been helpful to you. We'll see you at the next